swallowing a staggering $182 million in total dead cap to burn down the most explosive offense in football means absolutely nothing without the ultimate equalizer to fix the balance sheet. The front office isn't just rebuilding, they're playing Russian roulette with the franchise's valuation. You don't liquidate elite playmakers like Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa, only to expect Malik Willis, a 26-year-old quarterback holding exactly 6 career starts, to survive the bloodbath on Sundays. Miss on replacing that lost production, and we aren't staring at a bad year. We're staring down a half-decade of total franchise insolvency. The winning window slammed shut the second the ink dried on those release papers. We're breaking down the immediate financial chaos with Willis under center, plus a massive wire rumor tying veteran Stefon Diggs directly to Miami's vacant depth chart. But stick around until the end. GM Jon-Eric Sullivan is zeroing in on a specific first-round weapon, a kid who single-handedly forced 20 missed tackles last year. Pulling the trigger on him at pick number 11 shatters a 2-decade-old Green Bay drafting rule Sullivan swore by. It completely flips the map on this entire rebuild. Tap that like button if you prefer cold financial reality over front office PR spin. We track the actual cost of this teardown here. Right now, the quarterback room in South Florida is generating heavy noise, and the first domino to fall was an asset nobody had on their radar. The front office knew they held a glaring hole heading into 2026 offseason. Their answer? Handing a 3-year, $67.5 million contract with a massive $45 million fully guaranteed to former Green Bay Packers quarterback Malik Willis. The 26-year-old brings a microscopic resume, a 145.5 passer rating and 3 touchdowns in 4 appearances back in 2025, according to StatMuse. On paper, that contract crowns him the undisputed starter. That $67.5 million is a massive gamble. $45 million guaranteed for 6 career starts is terrible ROI. You're handing the keys to an unproven asset and praying he doesn't tank the valuation. Paying for potential over proven production is exactly how general managers end up unemployed. Even with Willis locked in, heavy hitters are looking past him. NBC Sports insider Mike Florio dropped a massive hypothetical on Pro Football Talk, floating the rumor that Ravens superstar Lamar Jackson might head home to Florida in 2 years when his current deal runs out. Florio noted they're tracking how Willis commands the huddle, making this contract a high-priced 2-year rental. That prove-it vibe gets complicated evaluating Miami's war chest for the 2026 NFL Draft. Trading Jaylen Waddle to the Denver Broncos was a ruthless liquidation, leaving the Dolphins sitting on a mountain of capital, 11 total picks, including 2 in the first round. ESPN analyst Dan Orlovsky pounded the table for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson on NFL Live. He argued that despite paying Willis, Simpson is too perfect of a fit for head coach Jeff Hafley's offense not to draft. I'm with Dan completely on the math. You don't sit on 2 first-round picks and blindly trust a guy with 6 starts on tape. Bring in the competition to hedge your bet. If Willis shrinks, you already drafted his replacement. It's basic asset management. Yahoo Sports analyst Nate Tice jumped on X to raise a massive red flag, pointing out the glaring elephant in the room. Miami gutted the roster. Who exactly is Willis throwing to? If he plays just okay, the team is trapped in purgatory. And the reason that roster is stripped goes straight back to the biggest shockwave of the offseason. But before we get to the draft capital, a fresh report just leaked tying the Dolphins to a battle-tested veteran catcher who could patch this bleeding hole immediately. Trading Jaylen Waddle to Denver fixed one headache by handing us a mountain of draft picks, but it instantly created a new nightmare. With Waddle packing for the Broncos, this offense is completely gutted. Malik Willis is standing in the pocket with 0 established weapons to target. GM Jon-Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley are on the clock, and they need a fix before this turns into a total mess, because the free agency pool is drying up fast. There's one heavy hitter floating out there making a ton of sense: Stefon Diggs. The New England Patriots cut the veteran wideout loose earlier this offseason, and he's sitting in free agency waiting for the right call. Teams desperate for receiver help are circling, and Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox is loudly connecting the dots straight to Miami. Diggs would be a sensible target for a team like Miami, which no longer has a #1 receiver to pair with new quarterback Malik Willis, Knox wrote. I don't care about his age. When you're operating with a liquidated roster, you acquire the guy who knows how to exploit man coverage. Diggs brings an immediate return on investment this offense desperately needs to function. The guy is 32 years old, but he spent the entire 2025 season dragging New England all the way to the Super Bowl before losing to the Seattle Seahawks. Review his actual production from that run. 85 catches, 1,013 yards, and 4 touchdowns over 17 games. Those aren't the numbers of a washed-up veteran. That's a guy who still knows how to beat man coverage in his sleep. Plus, Knox pointed out a massive detail. Diggs already knows exactly how offensive coordinator Brian Daboll runs his system. That Daboll connection is a massive discount on onboarding time. You don't waste training camp teaching Diggs the playbook. He walks in and instantly commands a receiver room. Even if the front office locks him down on a quick 1 or 2 year rental deal, Diggs instantly becomes the only real threat we have on the outside. The guys at SpotTrack project his market value around $13.8 million a year. For a team sitting on decent cap space and staring at a glaring hole in the depth chart, that kind of money is just a cost of doing business. $13 million is a rounding error to save your $45 million investment from getting completely exposed. If you're serious about evaluating Willis, you write that check yesterday as an insurance policy. We're running out of time and the open market options are drying up fast. Bringing Diggs to South Florida gives Willis a reliable, battle-tested weapon while the front office tries drafting some youth. If they pair a hardened veteran like Diggs with a young stud drafted in the 2026 draft, suddenly this offense has a pulse. It gives us a real foundation before week 1, and more importantly, it gives Willis an actual fighting chance to show us what he's made of. You can't evaluate a quarterback's processing speed if he's throwing to practice squad guys. Bring in Diggs, draft a rookie, and get a clean read on what Willis actually offers. But patching the roster with a veteran like Diggs doesn't change the brutal reality of what this front office just orchestrated. One national analyst just threw down a bare-knuckle prediction about exactly where Miami's going to finish next season after all this chaos, and he absolutely didn't hold back.
Let's not forget the full scope of this teardown. The Waddle trade was the final nail in the coffin of the old era. In a matter of weeks, the front office dumped Tyreek Hill and cut ties with Tua Tagovailoa, eating an astronomical $99 million in dead money just to get him out of the building. Then, they packed Waddle's bags, threw in our 111th overall pick in the 4th round, and shipped him to Denver. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, we dragged back the Broncos' first-round pick at number 30, plus their 94th overall in the 3rd and 130th in the 4th. GM Jon-Eric Sullivan sitting on a massive war chest of 11 draft picks, including 2 in the 1st round. FS1's Nick Wright jumped on the Dan Patrick Show and didn't sugarcoat the nightmare we're about to watch. Wright agreed with the cold logic of tearing the roster down, stating, "If you said, Nick, you're taking over the Miami Dolphins, I would have done a lot of the same things. Let's take our medicine and then try to move forward. But they're going to be the worst team in the league by a lot next year." Hearing a national guy confirm we're going to be the worst team in the league is a brutal reality check. Taking our medicine is a polite way of saying we're writing off the entire 2026 season to clear the books. It's a calculated tank. Wright doesn't view the Malik Willis contract as a mistake. He thinks it's the glue holding this teardown together. You need baseline competency at quarterback to properly grade the young receivers and linemen we're drafting. In order to evaluate any young players on the roster, you need to have a level of competency at quarterback, Wright noted. And if they end up having the number 1 pick, but they think Malik shows them enough, then they can really supercharge the reload by flipping that number 1 pick. Sitting on 2 first-round picks gives the front office absolute power. ESPN's Matt Miller's banging the drum for USC wideout Makai Lemon at the 11th overall selection. I'm a huge fan of Makai Lemon from USC. I think he'd be a fit at 11 if he's still on the board. He's actually my number 1 receiver in this draft. Miller pointed straight at Lemon's violent yards after contact numbers. The kid forced 20 missed tackles last season, tying for 6th in the entire nation. You want to replace Waddle's target share? You need an asset who turns a 5-yard slant into a 40-yard gain.
Forcing 20 missed tackles shows the kid's got the physical metrics to dominate. That's the exact efficiency we need to draft. But Miller dropped a huge warning flag. Pulling the trigger on a receiver at 11 goes completely against the old-school drafting rules GM Jon-Eric Sullivan learned during his Green Bay Packers days. In his 22 years in Green Bay's front office, Sullivan saw a receiver drafted in the first round exactly one time. If they go away from that old-school Ron Wolf strategy and want to draft a receiver at 11, I think he's a tremendous fit with what they have in Malik Willis and an offense built around the run game, Miller said on The Rich Eisen Show. The front office isn't obligated to spend that pick on a wideout. Like Dan Orlovsky pointed out, drafting Alabama's Ty Simpson's a massive possibility. That's the ultimate tug-of-war happening in the war room. Do you burn a first-round pick on a playmaker to give Willis a fighting chance? Or do you draft the quarterback of the future and accept we're completely starting over? Whatever trigger Sullivan pulls exposes exactly how this front office views the winning window. Personally, I say you grab the quarterback. If you're going to burn the roster down, you pour the concrete for a new foundation. We're tracking every single dollar Sullivan moves leading up to the draft. If you want the unvarnished reality of this rebuild's price tag, hit that subscribe button. We don't do fluff here, we do the math. See you next time.